When Donald Trump became president again, he sent away lots of immigrants, especially Africans. Most African leaders didn't do anything, but Captain Ibrahim Traore did. He asked the West to give back all the gold they took from Africa. Now he surprised everyone by paying off all of Burkina Faso's debt. Burkina Faso is a small African country that many people don't talk about. It's not known for oil or gold, and it's considered really poor. But get this, they just paid off nearly $5 billion in debt. They did it on their own without asking for money or making deals with the West. It may sound like a fairy tale, but it's true. Powerful people are amazed by what Burkina Faso did. Most people think Africa can't do big things without help from other countries. They think African nations always need help or money from richer countries, but Burkina Faso proved them wrong. In 2024, the Prime Minister, Dr. Apollinaire Guillaume de Tambela, announced that the country had paid off $4.79 billion in debt. They didn't rely on help from the IMF or the World Bank. They used their own resources and economy. Instead of waiting for help, they took charge and did it themselves. We're talking about a small country in Africa that doesn't have an ocean. Not many people around the world know about it. Many thought it couldn't survive without help from richer countries. But somehow Burkina Faso managed to get rid of nearly $5 billion in debt. They didn't use magic or get a huge gift. They used a plan. Even though the country has security problems and political pressure, they did something smart with their money. Instead of asking big banks for loans or waiting for help from Western countries, they asked their own people. The government said, "Hey, we believe in our country. If you do too, help us make it better." They made something called government bonds, like an IOU with interest, and offered them to local businesses, banks, and regular people. It was a brave move. Think about it. Most countries don't ask regular people to help pay off lots of debt, but leaders in Burkina Faso knew something important. If people believe in where you're going, they'll want to help. And guess what? The people did. It wasn't just about money. It was about trust, pride, and taking charge of their future. They weren't waiting for someone else to help. Even with danger nearby and tough times at home, things started to change. People began to feel more confident. They believed they could do it. And suddenly the government used its own people, not outside lenders, to move forward. What came next? Well, it was a surprise. People in the country started to believe in their government and in themselves. Their confidence grew. Local people in Burkina Faso, like small business owners and big banks, started putting their money into government bonds. This was a big deal because it showed that the people in Burkina Faso could help their own country's economy. Usually, when a country's economy is in trouble, they ask for help from experts from other countries. But Burkina Faso did things differently. They used their own resources and trusted their own people. Even when things were tough, like fighting in the Sahel, terrorism, and political pressure, Burkina Faso's leaders didn't panic. They didn't ask other countries for help. Instead, they stayed calm, stuck to their plan, and kept money flowing inside their country. Usually when things get bad, investors take their money out. But in this case, people actually kept their money in Burkina Faso. Why? Because the government was being honest and open about what they were doing. They were really smart with the books. They were clear about what they owed, how they would fix it, and how others could help. People understood this message. Even with real danger, Burkina Faso managed its money well. Investors noticed that someone was in charge, even during tough times. If you're still watching, you must like the video. So why not take a second and click the like button? Have you done it? Let's keep going. Now here's where it gets really clever. Burkina Faso didn't just rely on people's trust. They had something solid to back it up. Gold. Yes, the country has a lot of gold in the ground. So when the government asked locals to invest in bonds, they could also show the money from mining as proof that they had real value behind their promises. It's like saying, hey, we're not just hoping this will work. We've got gold to help us cover it. This made investors feel better. They knew the country had enough money. Burkina Faso didn't stop there. While some countries may have given in to pressure from the West, accepting strict conditions, making political changes, or cutting budgets, they chose to do things their own way. They stayed focused on what they thought would work, using the strength of their own economy. Banks, retirement funds, and local companies were asked to support the plan. The government basically said, if you have money saved up, why not invest it here at home? It's safe, you earn money, and it helps the whole country. And the response? Big. Local businesses didn't just put in money, they started working with the government on actual projects, roads, power systems, all the things that help an economy grow. It wasn't just about paying back debt anymore. It was about building the future together. This teamwork between the government and businesses created something special. Everyone felt like they had a part to play. Everyone was working together. At the same time, the financial sector was changing. They introduced new ways to invest, like bond options, to make it easier and more attractive. It wasn't just big banks getting involved. Small business owners and regular people could join in too. This led to more money going into the system. More people bought bonds and more projects got funded. Slowly but surely, the country started paying off its debt without asking for help from the West. It's not just about doing math. It's about making something that lasts. That's exactly what Burkina Faso did. They didn't just use the money to pay bills. They started planning for the future. They looked around and asked, how can we keep going in the right direction? Instead of spending all their money on old problems, Burkina Faso started fixing their roads and building energy projects. They also set up systems to help their economy grow strong. This was a smart move because when you have good roads, steady electricity, and reliable infrastructure, people notice. Investors from outside start to look at your country and think it might be a good place to invest in. But Burkina Faso wasn't just doing this to impress others. They had a bigger goal. They wanted to make sure they wouldn't need help from other countries in the future. They didn't want to beg or borrow money with strings attached. They wanted to have control over their own future. This changed everything. They weren't just paying off debt. They were building something that would last and keep growing. And here's the coolest part. The money they raised wasn't just used to pay back what they owed. It also created new jobs, businesses, and ideas. A long time ago, Burkina Faso owed a lot of money. Instead of just cutting back on spending, they took a different approach. They trusted their own people and supported their own businesses. They didn't follow the same old rules as other countries. People wonder if they got help from the West when things got tough. Usually, countries in trouble get support from wealthier nations, but Burkina Faso didn't get any help. When they were dealing with armed groups, trying to fix their broken system and going through big changes in government, the West didn't help them. In fact, they did the opposite. Instead of helping, big countries like the European Union stopped giving money and put sanctions on Burkina Faso. They didn't like that the military took over in 2022, so they punished the country. They didn't give any support to Burkina Faso, and they did the same to nearby countries like Mali and Niger. They hoped the people would get mad and kick out their leaders. But Burkina Faso didn't give in. They didn't ask for help. Instead, they said, we'll handle this on our own. The world was watching them, waiting for them to fail. But instead of asking for help from big organizations, they decided to rely on themselves. They trusted their own people, local businesses, and banks. They didn't want any fancy gifts or help from other countries. They believed in their own strength. It's hard to say no to outside help, especially when everyone says you can't survive without it. For a long time, people said African countries couldn't do things on their own. They always needed help. But Burkina Faso didn't want to be a part of that story anymore. They were tired of Africa being seen as weak and always needing help. So they made a bold choice. They said no. They said no to help that came with conditions. They said no to following rules from other countries. They didn't want their future determined by someone else. Instead, they asked their own people for help. They asked banks, businesses, shops, and workers to help make a new way forward. It wasn't about feeling proud, it was about feeling strong. The challenge for the government wasn't just getting money, it was getting people to believe again. They had to trust that their country could stand on its own. It wasn't easy, and it couldn't be fixed just by talking. They had to take action. Even when things were chaotic and scary, they still took action. The Western powers thought Burkina Faso would fail. They thought Burkina Faso would come back begging for help, but that didn't happen. Something amazing happened. Even though it was dangerous, people still came to help. Local investors, banks, and businesses all gave money and supported the plan. They didn't do it because someone told them to, but because they believed in it. The government didn't get money from faraway places, but from inside the country. With that money, they kept building and working. For a long time, powerful countries have thought that Africa can't do things on its own. They always thought Africa needed help and was behind. But Burkina Faso changed that. Instead of asking for money or following someone else's plan, they did something brave. They believed in themselves and it worked. They didn't wait for loans from big banks or follow orders from faraway governments. They stopped playing the game where Africa is always the one with the empty cup. They changed the story completely. And here's the thing, this wasn't just about money, it was also about pride and control. They wanted to show that they can build their own future. Now here's something that might make some people uncomfortable. Many of the systems that keep Africa dependent weren't created by accident. They were made on purpose. When African countries keep borrowing and depending on others, someone else is always in charge. While Africa stays stuck in debt, the real profits go to Western banks, big companies, and outside powers. These powers come for the gold, oil, land, and talent, but they never stay to build something lasting. It's been like this for decades. But now Burkina Faso is showing that it doesn't have to stay that way. They showed that African countries can use their own money, invest in their people, and make their economies work for them, not just for foreign investors. So why do some other African countries still rely on aid? Why stick to the same old way when there's a better one? It's not just about money, it's about how they think. Some leaders are used to thinking that foreign help is the only way. They think nothing can happen without approval from places like Washington, Brussels, or Paris. But things are changing. Burkina Faso's choice wasn't easy. It took courage to say no to easy money and choose something more important: freedom. If Burkina Faso can do it, why can't countries with even more resources like Nigeria or South Africa? They have strong economies, skilled workers, and natural resources. They already have everything they need. Now, all we have to do is think that they can move without asking. Maybe the important question isn't if they can do it. Maybe the real question is, did you like this video? If you did, click the like button and subscribe. And that's it. Thanks for watching.